Sorry about the technicals on Facebook. We are back up and running.
Yes, and we promise never to say that about Mark Zuckerberg again. That was completely uncalled for, and we apologize to anyone who might have been offended by the Mark Zuckerberg comment. Ian.
Hey, man. I just say what I say.
Yeah. You calls them like you sees them. No, seriously, there wasn't a Mark Zuckerberg comment. Although I think if I say his name enough times on the feed, that they promote it more, I think.
Oh.
So Mark Zuckerberg.
Zuckerberg.
Yeah. Although it might be impossible for anyone else to actually listen to. So let me know when we're ready for segment numero dos.
We are rolling in both places.
Welcome back to Smokin' and Toastin'. My name is Cruz. My co-host, my cohort, my partner in crime is Ian Barry. And Ian, this is the second time now on the show that you've been one of two Ians on the program.
Right. You know, well, the strange thing is, if you have a name like a more common name, Dave or Steve or something like that, and someone yells your name, half the time you're probably not even going to pay attention. When your name is Ian,
you're right.
Anytime someone says Ian,
so
you
Ian,
always turn and look.
I think that's probably
you know this feeling, right?
Yeah, I think that's probably true. So, well, Ian Mook is here. He is with the Grateful Dane Distilling Company, the first rum distillery in Houston.
I want to correct what you said. He's not with them. He
is them. Yeah, well, and I think I remember this from last time. It was just like you and a couple of friends, right? In the very beginning of Grateful Dane.
I do have volunteers come in.
Okay.
We do volunteer bottling days, but and then my wife helps on.
I love it.
I should have brought a sign-up list.
Yes, I would do it. Totally, I would do it.
And then my wife helps on the tasting room when we're open on Saturdays. But aside from that, I handle everything else myself.
So it's really a one-man operation, and that is what I think. When you want to talk about an actual micro distillery. This really is that.
We got to catching up a little bit before the show, too, and we were talking about last time he was here. He was actually working a 9 to 5 and running the distillery, and he finally, earlier this year, took the plunge.
That's a big step.
Doing full-time
It's scary, too,
now.
Isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
I've lost my share of sleep.
Yeah.
Right. But it's worth it.
It really is an amazing thing, though, when you can do this thing that you love doing and do it all day. And do it. That's what you wake up and do. That's what you're, doing all day. And it's really an amazing thing. So I'm guessing that this means you've had a certain amount of success and acceptance for what you've been putting on the store shelves. Can you speak to that?
Yes. So sales have been steadily increasing. They aren't shooting up drastically fast because my marketing budget is basically non-existent. But
and I would imagine you've got to be able to fill the demand as well. Like, it's not like you've got cases and cases sitting around waiting to go to the stores, right?
Absolutely, yes. I've got cases going out every month. So we always have every month my fermenters are being filled and emptied and filled and emptied. It's constant orders are coming in, so that's a good
awesome
thing.
Now, is there? Obviously, everybody deals with the whole, the prospect of when it's time to grow. But do you have the amount of machinery and equipment that you need for the near future, or are you reaching a sort of a bursting point pretty soon?
I built everything to scale, so I'm set up for the next little bit. When I get to the point where I run out of room with my equipment, I'll be doing pretty good.
Gotcha.
And then I'll be able to, put that extra money towards more equipment. So I think we'll be okay.
Now, I see your name all the time on the marquee at Community Bar, because I drive by that way quite often, and I see proudly serving Grateful Dane Rum. I'm like, hey,
that's pretty cool.
That was our first Spirits guest. It was awesome. But you've obviously met with, at least locally in the Houston area, some people that have really become fans.
Absolutely.
And those guys, I assume, must be fans or friends, because you're up on their marquee quite a bit.
Yes, the lady that owns that bar is super awesome. She told me, you can put those letters up there, and I figured she was going to leave it up there for a week or two tops, and it's been up there for almost a year.
I want to say almost a year.
Yeah, and it's like, okay,
awesome.
Thank you.
And by the way, so since they're giving you a plug, I'll give them one. Awesome. Taco night is not to be missed at the Community Bar. Those tacos are unbelievable.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
They have a good steak night, too.
Yeah. Oh, I have not been for steak night, but I'm aware that it exists. Yes. So yeah. But the tacos, oh my God, just terrific. So I think you told us the first time you were on, and correct me if I'm off on this, but didn't you tell us that we asked you how you learned the art of distilling rum, and that you learned by watching videos on YouTube? Is that really true?
Pretty much. I mean, YouTube. I did a lot of forum reading. There's a lot of resources out there to learn the basic practices that are necessary for distilling ethanol, and so self-taught via YouTube and internet, and I've read a few books, and I eventually took a class before I took the big plunge into opening a distillery to make sure that I had a grasp of handling this on a commercial scale.
Which has been more challenging, the distilling side or the business side?
The business side. I got into this because I like distilling. I like making rum. I like making a great product. But I've had to learn how to be a marketer and a salesman.
How to be the guy standing behind the little thing doing samples in the store.
Absolutely,
and stuff, right?
Yes,
yeah.
and it's been quite an experience. I've learned a lot of new skills.
Which I believe is how we met and how we got you to come on the show the first time, wasn't it? Weren't you at a Specs location?
Yes, yeah. I spent a lot of time.
My wife and I saw you there. Yeah. It's like,
a lot of time
this is good. You should come on the show.
Thank you.
Well, it's got to be just incredibly rewarding then to see that you have had this growth over and this is growth, I'm guessing, that all essentially has come before you've introduced your two new products, right?
Yes.
So hopefully this will be a year where you would really see that growth kind of go to another level.
I think so.
So one of the things that stuck with me when you were here last time is we asked if you had any other rums, because you just had the silver, which was quite nice, and you told us specifically you had other rums in the works, but they weren't ready yet. They weren't aged enough. You had to wait until the rum spoke to you.
Absolutely.
And said, I am ready to be released.
I'm very particular about my product.
I think that's great. That shows an integrity to the distilling process and the aging process. It says, we'll sell no wine before it's time.
Yeah, exactly. So how much different is the actual rum in your gold, which I understand the gold is technically not released yet? Is that right?
I mean, it's released. You can buy it at the distillery,
right.
And it should be about 10 cases are going out later this month, and they'll be throughout stores throughout the city at least.
So is this the same rum, just different aging?
Absolutely. So this is our Texas Silver Rum, which since I've been here, we actually won a gold medal at the 2017 Miami Rum Festival.
Congratulations. I did not know that. That's fantastic.
Thank you.
I'm not surprised, by the way, because of how good the rum was. I was so pleased when we had him on. I was just excited that, he was our first spirits guest, and he's from right here in our hometown, and he's, just kind of starting out just like we were, and then I tasted the rum. I was like, wow, I'm a an añejo rum guy. This silver is good, and that's what I really kind of spurred me on to becoming a fan of the product. So I'm actually very excited to taste the gold. Now, by rum standards, how long does it have to be aged to be a gold?
As long as you want.
Okay. Rum is looser about that than some spirits, right?
Yes, exactly, and that's kind of one of the main reasons I picked rum. But This has been about just shy of 2 years in 10-gallon barrels. So we're able to achieve in 2 years in a 10-gallon barrel, because of the volume to surface area ratio difference, what it takes in a normal size barrel about 15 to 20 years. Okay. So in the standard size, mega distillery, this is going to be about the same flavor profile. You're going to get that same return on from your oak as a 15 to 20 year rum.
Now, I read an article recently about some guys in a whiskey distillery in Los Angeles, a very small whiskey distillery, that they've invented some process that does the chemical equivalent of a longer period of aging in like a week, basically. So you can age whiskey for a week, and it undergoes the same chemical changes that would happen if you left it in the oak barrels for, for 5 years, for 10 years, for whatever the right amount of time is.
That's interesting.
I didn't know what to think of it when I read it, but it's interesting because what you're telling me is that the size and the way the science is applied, I guess, does actually impact the quote aging process. Is that right?
Yeah, and people are finding out all kinds of shortcuts to be able to get the aged product to the market quicker. And I'm familiar with they use like ultrasonic frequencies.
Yes,
and
it was really fascinating.
Yeah, there's all kinds of ways to do it. We do go the traditional route and just use a smaller barrel.
Smaller barrel.
And our warehouse is not climate controlled, so we get that temperature variance throughout the day.
So that wood's breathing a little bit.
Exactly,
too,
exactly.
Wow. And so this rum then was in those barrels for how long?
About 22 months.
22 months.
It's been sitting in the barrels.
Wow, it is really wonderful on the nose, I have to tell you.
This is one of the most oaky rums I've ever tried.
And isn't it interesting because...
Like in a great way.
Thank
you would expect that, though, from something that had been aged for far longer, this level of oakiness, right?
Absolutely. And
is this because of what you were describing?
And I also many rums have sugar added
post
distillation, and they also have caramel coloring, and also just kind of sweeten it up. There's no caramel or sugar added to this at all. You're getting that oak. That's the difference between the silver and the gold. Is you're getting the oak, and it's not covered up by all that sugar that you normally find in your typical rum, and that really helps it pair with a great cigar.
A pleasant rum flavor. It has that huge oak with some vanilla notes and that stuff, and then it finishes with
huge oak is exactly
really pleasant heat that lingers a little bit.
Yes, it's on the finish, and then it sort of stays with you in that wonderful, I'm so glad it's almost Christmas time kind of a way. You know what I mean?
Right.
I remember you talking when you were on the show the first time, Ian, about the silver rum that we were sampling, and you basically said this is straight out of the
still.
Straight out of the still. Yeah, that absolutely nothing was added or changed, or it wasn't aged. And I remember thinking, how do you get it that good, like just without anything?
Right.
But this is a great example of what happens to it when you're able to take the time and do. I guess if you're starting with a pretty solid product in itself, because like I said, we tasted the silver and it's fantastic.
This, your gold and your spiced are all starting from the same distillate.
That's correct.
So, and you said you're doing all natural, like there's no added
anything
artificial.
Nothing artificial.
Everything
nothing
like even the caramel, you're making your own caramel.
In the spice rum, correct.
In the spice rum.
I can't wait to have this with a cigar. This is going to
That's pretty nice.
Marry so nicely because of the oak. It's because that oak is so it's so
this leaves that oak a slight astringency on your tongue, like a good dry wine does almost. Like like that nice dry snap to it. I'm really enjoying that flavor.
And interestingly enough, because I know you market this as Texas rum, there's something about that oak flavor that makes it sort of taste like Texas. You know what I'm saying?
Thank you.
It really fits. All right, it's Smokin' and Toastin'. This has been very, very interesting, tasting the gold. We will still have more rum to taste, and we have some beers to put away as well. So stay tuned. It's Smokin' and Toastin', episode number 63.
It's all right.
Facebook Live, we still with you? What's up? Hello. Hi. Are you guys
showing anymore.
There's a box around my face. Are you guys seeing that? Because that looks really weird to me.
That's been there for years.
That's been there for years.
We just never wanted to tell you.
Man. I knew I should have looked in the mirror.
Way too fun.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah,
that's fantastic.
you should be proud of that.
You should be very proud.
I had the cigar on Monday, and it
Really?
really brought out like the pepperiness of it.
Oh yeah, I bet that's exactly what I was thinking, because this would go so well with the Oktoberfest.
I didn't get the pepper right off first, but like right when you said that, it kind of builds and it's kind of there on the end of the flavor. I love the way this finishes. I've never had a rum that finishes like this.
Yes, it doesn't. It finishes almost more like a whiskey than a rum.
I've really kind of designed this to convert whiskey lovers to rum lovers.
It's
Interesting.
very oily too.
Interesting.
Like coats the whole mouth.
Yeah, and there's no glycerin. A lot of people to acquire that viscosity, they add glycerin to their spirits. There's no glycerin.
Wow.
So interesting.
Very impressive.
It kind of has almost like a natural, like brown sugar kind of taste.
Yeah.
But I know what
cane
you're talking
sugar.
about, because there are plenty of rums where you get that sort of extra sugar. Like it's almost like, and I don't know if it's part of the formulation or if it's added, but but it's almost where they really want you to get that sugar cane sort of flavor as a part of it. And this is more like a spirit, like a more like towards the whiskey side of things, less sweet.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's good.
A good example of it is like Zacapa 23. It's a great rum, but
Yes.
it's loaded with sugar.
Yes, I agree.
It's
That it is a
basically
great rum, but
liqueur.
yeah, right. I know what you mean. What was the Ron Vincenia? What was it? The one that you got me for my birthday?
I can't remember.
Ron Vince.
Should I go ahead and pour this or wait?
Let's do beers in the next segment, and then let's
tell me
go
when.
because I don't want to sample the rum too early in the show and not have any more to talk about.
Right
on.
Man, that's fun. Yeah. Yeah, definitely be proud of that.
Thank you.
It smells so good.
So we'll be slowly releasing it into the market. I've just kind of been holding it as a tasting room thing, trying to drive some traffic into the tasting room, give people a reason to come by, not just for a tour, but something they can get there only. And,
A good enough reason to come by is rum.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Come by for rum.
Yeah, we've got all three of the rums there, cocktails, cheap cocktails, all kinds of good stuff. So
Nice.
We did $1 rum and cokes last Saturday.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
How fun!
Yeah.
Well, I'm really curious about the spice because one of my my wife's current favorite. My wife loves rum. Her current favorite is actually the pineapple infused plantation, which I actually really like too. It seems like it wouldn't be good, but it is.
I understand that they actually ferment with the pineapples.
That's
so
why it doesn't have
it's not
that
pineapple
like
flavored.
we
It's just
added right. It doesn't have that we
pineapples.
added flavor feel to it. It just feels like a rum that has this little hint of that. Anyway, so she likes that. But before she got into that, the sort of go-to around the house was Kraken, and we got to where we would drink Kraken and Diet Dr. Pepper on I think your suggestion, or perhaps it was yours, Tiffany. I don't remember.
It originally
But-
started with her, and then she got me drinking this
But
Kraken and Dr.
man,
Pepper,
that
which is
stuff is
really
good. So
good.
I'm going to be really curious to see if that has the same qualities.
Like
'Cause there's some about those two that just went.
This is not
married
like any spice
perfectly.
rum you've ever had.
Oh, really?
I'm
Oh, well,
go ahead and-
that's
yeah.
gonna be awesome.
Yeah, it's
I can't
very
wait
We
to
talk
good.
about
yeah,
that. That's
yeah.
gonna be great.
Yeah.
So what
okay.
beer are we trying next?
Time.
And let's get some of your cups out for that.
Yes, let's. I think first, I'll let you open that up. I think first we want to go with the IPA, which is the cans. There's a session IPA. Yes, and there should be one more of them in there if you see it.
How do you like the rum?
There's one more of them.
Tiff?
Yeah, how do you like the rum?
She can't hear me. Tiff, how do you like the rum?
That's next. There should be one more of these.
You got some cracked glasses here.
Uh-oh.
Those are not
Oh,
good.
yeah, we're trying to keep it cold.
You guys get to hear all the behind the scenes stuff going on
Yeah.
when you're listening in between our segments.
The Facebook Live people, yes.
Who knows Ryan Moorhead?
I do.
But you know Ryan?
He's saying hello to both Ians, I guess.
So both Ians.
No, actually, I don't know Ryan Moorhead. I know Ryan. Ryan. Something.
I know Ryan.
I went to school with him.
Yeah.
Oh, rock on.
I just know Ryan Gosling. You know, he hangs out at the house. You know.
Either way, we'll say hi to Ryan.
Hey, Ryan, what's up? Ryan Adams.
I love the rubber soul.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is one I brought back. Or, of course, I didn't actually bring it back because that would be illegal from Salisbury, Maryland.
Is it? I guess crossing state lines.
Well,
with beer?
you can't take the liquid on the plane,
Oh, it's over the.
and if you tell UPS that what you're shipping is liquid, they won't ship it.
Yeah. I'm
So you
familiar
have
with
to
that.
you have to just package it, and
It's a bunch of T-shirts.
it's And
Yeah.
when they say what is it, you say
Bottles of water.
yeah. There you go. So I shipped myself back. I was went up to visit a friend up in Bethany Beach, Delaware area, which is right by Ocean City, Maryland. So I went to the store and just got, because beer can be so regional, we can't find some of this stuff here. So I just went and got as much stuff as looked interesting as I could and put it in a box and shipped it back.
It's always fun trying the local flavors.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really do that, but that's the story that I
That's the
tell.
story, right?
Yeah. Yeah, but it's been fun. I think we're just about worked our way through my Delaware and Maryland beers now, and Got 1 or 2 Floridas, and you've got a box of Austins. So
Yep.
let's. Wow, this is good rum.
Thank you.
Very impressive.
All right, who else tasting beer?
We have a couple, so we're good.
I'll take some.
Adam, you trying beer?
All right, ready when you guys are. Segment 3. Welcome back to Smokin' and Toastin'. It's episode number 63. We are sampling Grateful Dane Rum, and Ian from Grateful Dane is our guest on the program today. And we are brought to you by B&B Butchers and Restaurant at 1814 Washington Ave in Houston, and in the shops at Clear Fork and Fort Worth, opening November 20th. Bacon, 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 bacon. Okay, it's a beer segment. So, Ian, while you open up our first sampling beer, let me right a great wrong by bringing this story to the show that I have teased, I think, for several weeks and never done. The first craft beer specifically for women in menopause has been developed in New Hampshire. Of course it was New Hampshire. The Portsmouth Brewery is releasing the beer. It's called Liberation, like liberation but with 2 E's, so
Liberation?
Liberation. Brewery co-owner Joanne Francis has called the beer a breakthrough in what is essentially a male-dominated industry, and she's certainly right about that. She says it's taken years to bring this idea to market. After consulting with women health practitioners and herbalists, our team came up with ingredients believed to relieve symptoms like sleeplessness, hot flashes, and mood swings, she said in the press release, and we want to shift the mentality from focusing on the negative aspects of this stage in life to celebrating the liberating aspects. And she says she first floated this idea 6 years ago, and then it was initially met with what she describes as disgust and horror from her employees. But she persisted, and the beer was just recently released. It contains a number of ingredients that herbalists use to help women deal with menopause, like motherwort, lemon balm, chamomile, and stinging nettle. So there you go. It is from the Portsmouth Brewery, and it is called Liberation, Liberation. To the best of my knowledge, it's not available to us here in our home city of Houston, Texas, but I'm sure that if you're listening in the Northeast in New England, you can find this. Because Portsmouth Brewery is very well known, actually.
Yeah.
So
I'm a little speechless on that. I'm not entirely sure what's
I think
Go girl.
I think it's a fascinating idea. I mean, you know, obviously, your rum company is young, so you haven't experimented, I'm sure, with any of these sort of like crazy, like, what if we added this? Would that time ever come for you? Say you're 10 years down the road, your company's successful, you've got, you know, a number of different lines going. Would you ever go, let's just try this? It's a crazy idea. Let's try it.
Possibly. I'm a traditionalist. I don't like putting anything in my rum. I letting the rum speak for itself.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, I'm always open to new things. So you never know.
Well, that should be very interesting if you do. I would want to be in those meetings, just to fly on the wall.
Guys,
in those
I was thinking
meetings.
salmon infused rum. Sorry, I was trying to think of two things that just would never go together.
Yeah, would never go together.
Yeah.
That's
salmon infused rum.
So from Salisbury, Maryland, which is right on the Maryland-Delaware beach line area, comes Rubber Soul Brewing Company and the Paceline Session IPA. Now, Paceline Session IPA, they say we give catching a draft a whole new meaning with this citrusy Session Swiller. Dry hopped with Citra and Cascade and topped with a pinch of orange peel. You'll forget this flavor bomb is a Session. I also want to mention that the Rubber Soul Brewery, in addition to borrowing their name from a Beatles album, is a fully solar-powered brewery.
Now, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Fully solar-powered.
So this smells like a cream ale.
Yes, and not so much a Session IPA, huh?
It doesn't really, you can smell the hops in it, but it really smells more like a cream ale.
Oh, you're so right, and I'm getting first nose of it here, but you're right. It does have a very creamy, it reminds me actually a bit, we recently tried that Eighth Wonder cream ale that was hopped, dry hopped.
Yep. This
AstroTurf,
starts off flavor-wise like a light IPA kind of flavor, and finishes with a grapefruit
With a real
slam.
grapefruit, yes. Now, I will tell you, I think this is actually quite good. This works for me for what it is supposed to be. A very summery, sort of refreshing, not too bad of an idea to load a few of these up in the cooler and head to the pool, that type of thing. Does this work for you? I'm not seeing this work for you so much.
No, this is not something I'd choose again. It's the grapefruit kind of takes over everything for me, and it's a little too much on the end.
It is pretty intense.
It's pretty intense.
Ian, you're a rum purist, but are you the same way with beers, or do you like all the experimentation?
I appreciate good Reinheitsgebot, but a good flavored beers are definitely something. I'll always try something once.
Mm-hmm.
But
what do you think of this? Does this work for you at all?
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah,
I like it.
I find it to be. Oh, okay, you're right. It's a big grapefruit wallop on the end. But I like it. We were just talking actually before the show about the fact that I didn't want to have one before we went into the show because I didn't want it to sort of twist my palate that direction. But the Shiner Ruby Red grapefruit beer is actually a very enjoyable summer beer, and I always get at least 1 6-pack of it every summer.
That being said, that's not one of my first choices either.
I realize this.
So this is just a personal flavor thing. This is for me. It's a little too much grapefruit. It's a pretty decently made beer. It tastes pretty balanced overall. It's just that grapefruit aftertaste for me is not doing it.
I'm just showing that to the camera. I don't know if it's the right one or not. Paceline Session IPA from Rubber Soul. So
it smells great too, though.
Yeah. I find it really refreshing. So that's very interesting. All right, we'll come back to something else that should be interesting and different beer wise in just a few moments. I do want to mention that I've been reading Ian Mook that ultra premium rum is totally blasting off as a category in the spirits world. That it's one of the fastest growing categories. So you're talking about your, really long aged, extra añejo type rums and things that probably are price tag wise, $65-$70 and above. Mm-hmm. Are you aware of that? Is that something you're cognizant of, and does it impact you because you're at sort of the different end of the spectrum at this point? You're doing very affordable, very sort of fresh forward sort of rums,
Yeah, I think price point is kind of what sets rum apart from whiskey. Whiskey, sky's the limit with how much a bottle can cost, but even your ultra premium rums are usually no more than just about $100.
Yeah.
The most expensive stuff that you can find in the store shelves. And I plan on doing single barrel releases and more ultra, along the lines of ultra premium, but rum takes time to age if you're going to call it ultra premium.
What's the price point on that bottle of gold that you'll be releasing?
This is going to be about $38 before taxes.
That's well worth it.
Boy, you can't beat that. You really can't.
That's well worth it.
You really can't. That's right in the same neighborhood as the Plantation 5 and the Plantation with pineapple that we were talking about during the break that I like a lot. They're just good, very straightforward, good, enjoyable drinks, and but that's just as good. So I'm excited to get to the segment where we're going to taste the spice rum, but we're on to beer here, and this one should be interesting, Ian. This is from Boonville, California. It's the Anderson Valley Fall Hornin. Again, I don't name these, I just buy them. Fall Hornin Pumpkin Ale. And so we haven't had a pumpkin ale yet this year, so this should be an interesting thing, because my palate, we just did grapefruit, for God's sake. I mean, that's as what do you want to say? That's as summery as you can get, and now we're going to shift gears very dramatically into a more fall sort of a taste.
That grapefruit is still lingering on me.
Now, how are you about pumpkin ales in general?
It really, normally like last year before we did our pumpkin ale show last year, which we did a bunch. We had 12 or 10 pumpkin
Quite a few,
ales.
Yes.
I really generally would just pass by them, except for the St. Arnold Pumpkinator, which I just feel like you should have one every year.
It's part of honoring the holiday, right?
Right. It's just part of the holiday. And I had mine last night, actually, with my buddy Scotty. And which is fine. It's very pumpkin-y beer. So overall, it wouldn't generally be my first choice. However, we had a few last year, and I'll have to look up the names, that were just outstanding.
There were some great ones last
We
year.
had one that tastes just like the crust of the pumpkin pie.
I remember that.
So
it was
good.
like you could just taste the actual crust of the pie almost, and not just the pumpkin. It was very interesting. Well, this beer is pretty fascinating too. All brewed ale. It's an ale brewed with pumpkin and spices, and it's from Anderson Valley Brewing in Boonville, California.
This is
Talk to me,
interesting.
Ian.
This has got a light pumpkin flavor to it, which is nice. This tastes like beer with pumpkin, not pumpkin with a little beer.
And that is true of many pumpkin ales, that they are pumpkin with a little
Yes.
beer. Yeah.
This, but what's interesting about this is you get that kiss of pumpkin flavor, but you get that cooking spice, that smell, that cinnamon and all the spices that you put in the pumpkin pie is really prevalent, especially on the aftertaste on this. I actually enjoy this.
Yeah, it's quite good, but the pumpkin kind of comes and goes almost.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah, the pumpkin
You get
flows
it-
pretty quick.
You get it late in the
But those-
flavor profile, but then it's not what lingers.
But those baking spices come right back in.
Mm-hmm.
That I find that pretty interesting. How are you feeling about this, Ian?
I like to try new pumpkin beers every year, and I've never had this before. I would open another can. It's good stuff.
That's what it looks like right there. And let me show this to the camera as well. The Anderson Valley Fall Hornin. I don't know why. I don't know if I get the horn reference,
It's a
but
bear with
there's
antlers?
a bear with antlers here and bats around him. But up here on the top rim of the can, it says, I think it says bold, or it's either bold or bald Hornin. I'm going to guess it's bold. It's just hard to read the font. Bold Hornin since 1987. So I'm wondering if Hornin is something.
It's BAHL, ball.
Ball? Well, that's even more mysterious because I have no idea what
No idea.
Ball Hornin would be. It seems like something rather suspicious involving the Dalai Lama or something. I mean, I don't know.
Maybe that's the bear's
Oh.
name.
Maybe.
They should get in touch with us and let us know what we're looking
Wow,
at here.
we're gonna have to find these people. 6% ABV and very enjoyable. It's lighter
beer.
than you might think. It's a good beer. All right, so we've had a couple of good beers. When we come back, it's spiced rum time. I like that because I really like it.
Yeah, I'm not a Ruby Redbird fan, but I much prefer that to the Ruby Red.
Yeah, I like it better
the
too.
grapefruit is not. I mean, you get that grapefruit on the very finish, but it's nothing. Ruby
It's not
Redbird's
like the
just-
whole. Yeah, it sort of like knocks you out almost with the grapefruit.
Yeah.
No, I'd say I'll stick to the rum on this one today. This was good though. The Fall Hornin.
Right.
That was
I'll send you home with that. Since
Pleasant.
You can't go buy it.
Oh, thank you so much.
I really like the Paceline one. That was
Yeah.
Did you? See, that was not a me thing. Apparently, apparently I'm just a stick in the mud on that one.
Yeah. Well, that's all right.
Yeah, I get more IPA than grapefruit, whereas like Ruby Redbird is grapefruit.
Right. Oh yeah, and it's not even really an IPA. I think it's just a lighter ale.
Yeah.
Might
Or
be a
lager.
It might be a lager.
I
Yeah.
think, yeah, most of the Shiner stuff is lager. Except now that they make IPAs and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this spice rum is a very fall feel to it, so I
Oh,
think
cool.
it'll go quite nicely. Follow up
Quite
that.
nicely follow up with the pumpkin. Good. I would hope we weren't steering in the wrong direction there.
We're doing 4 of them. Should I go in 4?
Yes.
That's a local, that's a straight off top. Jake Bag.
So I hung out with
If you have the original.
Mattias Horseman, and he's talking about.
Oh, so
he
you got
made
to
me-
hang with Mattias.
Yes, he's.
So I'm sure he
He's
remembered
so
being on the
entertaining.
show.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
He knew me as soon as I walked up and started talking to him. Thank you.
Very welcome.
And anyway, he was talking. He's probably going to be in town at some point in time at the beginning of next year, so we need to catch up with him because
Oh,
it'd be a
good.
lot of fun.
Yeah, I really wanted to have him on. We just couldn't do 3 shows. This
Yeah,
week.
yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah.
So he was telling me he's pretty tired from staying in hotels. He's been on the road for a while. That was yours a while back, and then you didn't.
Is that the pace line? That's the pace
that was the
line.
pace
Yes.
line, yeah.
With the grapefruit. So
Went straight to the pumpkin.
Yeah, I've got a pumpkinator from last year,
yeah.
and I'll be having it.
It's
They
different.
say you're supposed to age.
It tastes very different this
hard.
year. It seems.
I haven't had this year's.
It's very pumpkin, Very, very pumpkin-y right up front this year.
One of my favorite Christmas beers is the Anchor Steam.
Oh, yeah.
And it's different every year.
Yeah.
Like, it's a different, whole different format.
I'll buy that as soon as I see it.
I'll buy it, like, taste unseen.
And St. Arnold's Christmas Ale, if you ask me, is one of the best beers.
Well, and I
like
love
their Sailing Santa.
Sailing Santa.
Sailing Santa's pretty good. I like it, but their Christmas Ale is just...
Yeah.
Like, that stuff to me is amazing.
Yeah.
And their Oktoberfest. Like, they did the...
their Oktoberfest
seasonals are
is
so
probably
good.
my favorite Oktoberfest. It's just really strong.
We need to get them on.
Yes, we do.
St. Arnold, if you're listening.
Mr. Brock.
Brock, it's time to come on
Brock,
the show.
we need to see you on here. All
Brock's
right.
a good dude, and he knows beer. So I want to briefly tell you about this. I think I don't want to really get into this, but there's a fascinating article, fascinating interview with one of the executives at Miller Coors, and it's talking about the whole craft beer war thing from that perspective. He makes great points. He's not condescending. It's very, very interesting. Like, he honestly would be an amazing guest. He probably makes some people mad, but he's not. But not because he's a jerk about it, but just because they would, not necessarily like what he had to say. But
Well, you can give both sides a voice,
it would be so interesting. My dream scenario would be to have, like, Brock and him on the show at the same time
That would be pretty amazing.
and talk craft versus, versus big. You know?
Wow.
I was raised on big brewery. My dad used to work at Coors when back in the 90s.
Oh, wow.
I
Yeah?
used to live in Golden.
In Golden, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's a great place to be a kid.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah. But that's kind of what got me started on the whole thing.
Very interesting. Yeah. Well, listen, Coors or Coors Banquet, whatever it called. I mean,
Yeah.
people used to drive
Yeah, banquet beers.
all over the country. They'd drive to Colorado to get that and drive back with it in their cars.
Eastbound and down.
That's great. It's crazy.
my
when you think of it.
philosophy: beer and let beer.
Yes. Well, that's the way. Yeah. We're sort of neutral on that, but at the same time, we want to see craft beer do well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's our. I guess if we have a stance, it's like we just want craft beer to be a healthy industry. We don't want the big guys to come in and mess it up. But that said, I had a Carbach Weekend Warrior the other day, and it was just as delicious as it was 2 years ago before they were bought by, Anheuser-Busch.
Well, I think there's
So
a
why
lot
should
of
I not
stance
enjoy
on it
that,
where people think there's not room for both,
Right.
and I think there is and should be room for both. I mean, there's a lot of people that don't like the beer that I like.
Right.
So,
As you say, beer and lead beer.
I had one of my wife's friends came over one time. She's like, "What are you drinking?" And I explained to her, and I can't even remember what it was, but it was probably a barley wine or something ridiculous. And she's like, "I don't know, that sounds crazy." And I poured her a little, and she had a sip, and she looked at me, and she goes, "That tastes like poison."
Yeah.
Well, not everybody likes what I like.
That is great.
It's just that one always stuck with me because she was very serious about it. She goes, "That tastes like poison." I don't have a basis of reference for that, but
Right. This doesn't taste like the poison I had the other day, but it still does kind of taste like poison. Yeah. All right, Bobby, we're ready? Welcome back. It's Smokin and Toastin, feeling swanky and rum tasting like. We are live in the studio today and enjoying being back in the studio. It's fun to be out on the, on the road, do the shows on the road, be able to smoke a little bit. But it's also fun to be in the studio and get to play with all the camera toys and all that kind of
one
stuff.
day we're going to talk Bobby into letting us smoke in here.
Yeah, it'll happen. It'll happen. He's like, okay.
For the record,
He's
go
saying
for
go
it.
for it. Yeah. I think fire alarms would go off.
Yeah, right.
I think the cops would be in here, and we definitely don't need anybody poking around into our backstory. So, so that's the thing. We are brought to you by B&B Butchers and Restaurant at 1814 Washington Ave in Houston, and in the shops at Clear Fork in Fort Worth. beginning on the 20th of November. Ian Mook from Grateful Dane Rum Distillery is here. They are the first and original
Houston's oldest
rum distillery. Houston's oldest. Thought you might find this interesting. You probably know this already because I'm sure you keep up with this stuff. But there is a brand new leader in sales among all liquor brands, and it's not one of the big boys. Well, I guess they are a big boy at this point if they're a leader in sales, but it's not one of the perceived big boys. It's not Jack Daniels. It's not any of the ones that you would perhaps expect. It's from right up the highway from us. It's Tito's Vodka from Austin. Is now the #1 selling spirit brand, not owned by any of the alcohol giants, and considered, I guess, a pioneer of the craft spirit movement, aren't they?
Yeah, he's the godfather of craft distilling.
So does that make you happy? Does it make you excited? What's the reaction of somebody that's in your position when you see that happen?
I think it's great. He's been at it for a long time. I think he started as a distillery in '94, so it's well deserved. And I've met him. He's a super nice guy.
And it's a great product too.
Yeah,
Tito's Vodka is quite good.
There's a reason. His price point is unbelievable for the quality of that vodka.
Well, that's right. Before Tito's kind of hit the market, things have shifted since then, but before they became sort of like available everywhere, to get a vodka as good as theirs, you did have to pay considerably more.
Yeah. Well, one of my reps used to be a rep for Tito's in the late '90s. He said you couldn't give the stuff away. It was this great product, but everybody was stuck on their Grey Goose or whatever they were
thought
buying.
They needed Belvedere
craft wasn't a thing for distilling back then.
Isn't that interesting?
And
I wonder if, and maybe you can speak to this, is the craft distilling movement benefiting from what happened at beer?
I believe so.
Yeah,
I believe so.
With people becoming more interested in the whole smaller batch, handcrafted kind of vibe.
Yeah, I think it's the craft beer really followed what wine did,
right?
And then distilling's just following behind that, and I think it's more of a direction in towards just artisanal, crafted items, not just spirits, but everything. People are appreciating things that are handmade now. Instead of now that robots are doing everything, people kind of appreciate stepping back and going back to how it was done for the last 100 or 1,000 years.
Well, you're right.
I always personally, like, when I go to a different town or even in my town, if I can buy local, I will buy local and try it.
You try to, sure.
Always
certainly makes sense with like fruit and vegetables and things like that to buy local. It's going to be fresher. It's going to be potentially more delicious.
I think there's a lot of people out there that buy the big brands solely on the fact that there's an argument for it, solely on the fact that, okay, if I buy this brand, I know exactly what I'm getting every single time. That for consistency. However, like me, I like to try different stuff. If I see something that's a little different, I want to go, let me try that instead.
Well, I think there's a lot of that in the craft beer, and then to follow the craft spirit movement is people just wanting to try new things and wanting to experience new things. And you never know. You may find your next favorite beer. You may find your next favorite rum, your next favorite spirit with whatever it is that you're sampling that you haven't. That's when I sit down at a restaurant, I always asked to see a beer list or ask them to recite it off, and I'm always looking for that one that I don't know.
Right.
Right. And I go, I'll try that, Well,
I think
ask if there's anything that's not on the menu.
Right. Oh, see?
I never think about that. But I think that's following over into restaurants as well. You can go across the country and you see the same series of restaurants in the same order almost in the same strip centers that look exactly the same, whether you're here or you're in Boston or you're in wherever you are.
No, that's right.
But there's been a resurgence of those kind of craftier places. I think it's just starting a whole movement of let's do some stuff different now.
Well, that's kind of what has happened at Grateful Dane. If you think about it, Houston did not have a rum distillery of its own until you got started, and you honestly you're like the textbook guy for just a guy who wanted to do it, and so he just did it. Like you know what I mean? Like you watched the videos on YouTube, you took some classes, you did some reading, but it wasn't because you come from a long line of family distillers of rum, or anything like that. You just said, "This is what I want to do," and you started doing it in your spare time, and now it's your everyday thing.
Exactly.
So tell us about the spiced. I'm really curious.
So this is the spiced rum. This also starts out as our Texas Silver. The difference being is that we take all natural spices and infuse it. So I make a steeping bag out of cheesecloth. It's similar, basically a tea bag, and we put whole bean Mexican vanilla, which is actually I've found now that I've started making this is very difficult to find.
Oh, really?
But
is it the whole bean part of it that makes it difficult?
Just vanilla in Madagascar and Mexican vanilla are both your two highest grades of vanilla, and I don't know if there's just a shortage right now. Or
I know every time I'm in Mexico, I buy like the baking vanilla and bring it back.
In my opinion, it's the best vanilla. So I put that in there. We use coffee. It's from Java Pura Coffee Roasters. I have their head roaster, Alex. He selects a single origin bean that gets roasted the same day it gets infused into the rum. They're actually in the same complex as my distillery, so I just walk over there and grab a big old bag of it and carry it over. Sometimes he brings it to me. And then we also use, it's lightly oaked, but we don't barrel age it. We use oak sticks, so the oak is infused that way. And I make my own caramel from the same sugar that the rum's made from. I'll caramelize the sugar and make a nice caramel, and it adds some color and also gives it some of that caramel flavoring as well. And that's pretty much it. There's a little bit of raisin in there as well that kind of adds to the sweetness.
It smells delicious.
And Jamaican allspice as well. That's where your spiciness is really going to come from.
So how much experimenting did you do? Or maybe a better way to ask that question is, how many times did you go, okay, let's taste this, before you got to the one where you said that's the keeper?
I went through so many mason jars of tests. I had our entire kitchen counter was covered in different mason jars that all had different numbers with different variances of spices, and I'd narrow it down to which spices I liked, and eventually till I just narrowed it down to like 2 or 3, and then I started really tweaking those until I just designed my own final. And so there's a lot of little half liter mason jars.
So I would ask the same thing of you that I ask of the cigar rollers, which is, can you, after doing all of that, can you trust your palate? Like, does your palate get overwhelmed?
It is.
Point?
Yeah. It takes a long time because of that. You just kind of, and even if you're spitting it out, you still absorb a certain amount of alcohol, and then your palate's mentally skewed. So you have to really kind of pace yourself, and that's what took a long time. And but yeah, it took quite a while for me to kind of figure it out. So the spice rum is the most tinkered with rum. I kind of consider it a separate rum from the gold and the silver, because the gold and silver are very pure products.
Well, this
is loaded with flavors.
This is fascinating because on the nose, that's exactly how I describe it. Wow, there's so much going on in this, and not what I was expecting. Although now that you've described what's in here, like, I get it. Ian, what's your thoughts on?
Well,
on
I've
the
already
nose?
done research.
Oh, okay. Well, talk to me.
First off, it smells amazing. It smells like rum. It smells like a spicy rum. You get a lot of that stuff. It doesn't taste like any spiced rum I've ever had, and I love this.
No.
It's such a unique and interesting flavor. That baking spice kind of thing that we talked about, it has a lot of that. It has the heat, just like the other...
Just like the gold does.
Just like the gold does, that comes right back and just kind of lingers for a while. It's a pleasant feeling. Like, if you're wanting to stand around and warm yourself up Christmas time, this right out of the bottle is delicious.
You were so right. It definitely has a sort of a fall or a holiday vibe to it. And I don't know if that's the allspice that's making me
It's a great combination
perceive that, or the combination. Yeah,
I think it'll make a great hot toddy this winter.
Oh,
bet.
Put a stick of cinnamon in it.
It's got a
Maybe a couple
sweetness to it that feels real natural, too. It's not a sticky, like, sickly sweet. It's just a really nice, pleasant sweetness to it that...
It's a thinner viscosity than most drinks that you would have that would have this kind of spice.
Absolutely.
Does that make sense?
And there's really not a whole lot of spice in it.
Right.
It's very lightly spiced. And I had so many doing tastings all the time at Specs and in liquor stores throughout the state. A lot of customers say, well, whenever you have a spice rum, then I'm interested, because I had a silver at the time. And I had never really even planned on making a spice rum, because spice rum is really not my jam. So I said, if I'm going to make a spice rum, I'm going to do a spice rum for people like me. Something that's different.
This is way different from any spice rum.
Way different.
Exactly.
Yes.
And so I set out to just, not imitate. I bought a bunch of different spice rums and said, okay, how do all these taste? What do I not like about them? And made that my strong point.
Now, I will say, I enjoy even the sort of like over-the-counter sort of spice rums from time to time. But I will tell you that, like, if we're let's say we're out at a concert, and you go to the bar for me, and I say, you say, what do you want? And I go, oh, see if they have any spiced rum. If you come back with a spiced rum, I may take it and drink the whole thing and not be able to tell you whether it was Sailor Jerry's or Captain Morgan's, because they're just...
There's a
a real similar profile. This, I could tell
This
you
is way
right
different.
off the bat.
Yeah.
Wow, what I'd be asking you, what is this? Where can I get it? This is really interesting. Walk me through the spices one more time.
Mexican whole bean vanilla, Jamaican allspice, locally roasted coffee, some oak, house-made caramel, a little bit of raisin in there as well.
I was going to say, there's a little bit of sweetness. I guess that must be from the raisin.
The raisins, yeah, it adds kind of
Yeah.
that dried fruit, which is kind of a traditional spicing.
That's the reason
and
you
it
like
also
this.
You
It's-
get the sugars out of it.
This is the spiced rum cousin to barley wine. Is what this
That
is.
was- that what it
That's
is.
why you're liking it, Ian. I'm
I
telling
just
you.
drink it neat.
Yeah, this is great. This is really, really good. Okay, we have one more segment, and we have some Abita Turbo Dog to taste. We owe
Terrence.
Yes. So we'll be back with that. It's Smokin' and Toastin'. You
What do you
could not
feel?
have pre-described this to me and had me understand what it would taste like.
Thank you.
Not as good as the other one.
He's not
You
your
like to
favorite. I love
Yeah,
this.
it's
I
for a
think
unique
this is-
product. It's not.
This is
everybody's cup of
probably
tea.
the best spice rum.
It's pretty good.
I usually avoid spice rums. This is probably the best spice rum I've had.
Thank you.
Like this is
It's
maybe
different.
yeah. It's not like the other spice rums.
Well, it's a
doesn't have that
completely
same-
different spice
It
profile.
doesn't have
Yeah.
that same spiced rum smell that I always.
Most spice
get.
rum they do clove, which I decided
I think
against.
it's the clove
I decided
that
against clove
maybe-
and cinnamon, and cinnamon just always overpowers everything. So I went with
Right.
no clove, no cinnamon, and a lot of spice rums are very high in the citrus profile, which is another thing I didn't add.
This is delicious.
It's missing like a little something that I'm used to in the spice rum.
See, and I think that's why I like this particular one.
Right. Well,
Probably
you
cinnamon, maybe.
you
Cinnamon
probably,
clove?
probably the cinnamon. I would
Yeah.
guess it's the cinnamon.
There's
Well,
the others.
Do you use like orange peel and stuff in your spice rum?
No.
That's probably
Yeah,
what
yeah,
it
maybe
is.
the citrus. That's a
So
common.
A lot of it has cloves and stuff like that.
I-
The cloves, vanilla beans.
I like it.
Vanilla
What's
bean and
really interesting though is that you did exactly what you said.
I
Is
think
you
that would probably add just a little bit
you-
of more balance to it, as if it had the orange zest to
Yeah.
it.
Don't change it. I like it.
Yeah, well, the orange zest. Just whenever I tried orange zest, and it just whenever I put that in there, like with this recipe plus orange zest, you taste orange. That's it.
It's just
Right.
orange.
And it just covers everything else because this is so
that's
subtly
like, what is
spiced.
that one rum we had? The Pirat
The other
or
one
Pirat?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It was good, but it was like orange rum.
Yeah.
You know, it was like it was good, but definitely orange.
It's actually very drinkable.
Thank you.
I think you did exactly what you described though. You created a spiced rum for you.
Yeah.
And you weren't as big a fan of the sort of traditional spice rum flavor. Same thing you're saying.
Same thing here. Like if you set just a spice rum down on the table next to me, like I don't want it near me. I don't like the smell.
Right.
Like for most spice rums, I just don't. Like, there's a certain smell in there. It might be the clove that you're talking about or whatever it is, but there's a certain smell that it has that I just don't want to be near. It just doesn't smell good to me. This, I think, is a fantastic drink.
Thank you.
So, I'm for it.
It's ready to drink.
And I bet this makes a great hot toddy. And
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna do some hot buttered rum with it. I haven't done it yet, just because I can't bring myself to making hot buttered rum in this heat.
you gotta wait till it cools down a
Is
little bit.
horchata rum based too?
Horchata is rum chata is horchata plus rum.
Okay, that's what I'm thinking.
But yeah, horchata is just like a rice milk with cinnamon,
right.
which mixes quite nicely with rum.
Yes, that's what I was
I'm
thinking.
not entirely sure if it's like actually accurate, but I think like part of the spice thing, rum is where they did it is back in the old Renaissance period. They had the cloves that they would stick in the oranges.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
And
right,
you would have
yeah,
to take
yeah,
a
yeah.
bite and stuff in it. That's why it usually has a little bit of orange zest and stuff to go with.
Didn't they originally spice rum so it would keep? Like, wasn't that part of the?
I don't think
is
rum
that
has
part of
any
the
trouble
nomenclature?
keeping.
Yeah, I was just say.
Yeah, it's self
Maybe so you could,
sanitizing.
maybe so you could still taste it when you watered it down to grog.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe so.
Maybe.
Because that was, I mean, I don't know what the ratio is, but they'd water it down substantially for grog.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's pretty awesome, actually.
Thank you. the Lalo actually used the spice in a painkiller for a while. We had the release party at Lalo, and they used the painkiller.
Nice.
For a painkiller, interesting.
Yeah, quite nice. And then,
It'd also be interesting to try it in a bushwhacker, the frozen concoction.
Oh, I bet that'd be good.
My wife makes those pretty excellent.
Yeah.
And she'll usually use Kraken in it. Yeah. That seems to be the one that she's found that works the best. But
this is at Spec 00.
We had them. We had the bushwhackers when we were in the Virgin Islands, and everybody was drinking the painkillers, and they were good and stuff. And then we had someplace we were with the bushwhackers. Like, what is that? It's like a chocolate shake, except it's loaded up with rum.
Yeah.
And it's delicious.
Sounds good.
Rum and like fresh nutmeg, like fresh grated nutmeg.
That's always good.
And it's really good.
I'll make one of
All right, final segment, correct? I have a story, and we will have a Turbo Dog.
Yeah, I just can't stop drinking this. It's so good.
I love when that happens. No, it's good.
If I put this right here, does it look like I'm drinking it?
Almost.
All right, ready?
Okay, we are.
Welcome back. It's Smokin and Toastin. I think I'm in a spiced rum induced haze at this point. This is really good and it's definitely driving me towards that holiday spirit now. This is the first thing that I've had. Well, this and the pumpkin ale, I will say, from earlier, are both making me think, we're getting close to like Halloween, Thanksgiving, and Christmas time.
Well, and beer and spirits pairing, those two really work together as well.
Well, they really do, and that's not. And I am very, very interested. Just mentioning the gold, very interested in pairing that with cigar. That's something that I'm looking forward to trying. So, we have a lot to look forward to here on this program. So, how many cigars would you say is a lot? If I tell you that I smoked X number of cigars a day. How many would it be before you said, yeah, that's a lot?
That's a lot. Cigars are pretty time consuming.
Right.
So 5 cigars, 6 cigars, that's
Okay.
a lot.
All right.
I think,
All-time Chicago Bulls basketball star Michael Jordan loves a good cigar. And in the new Cigar Aficionado that's about to hit the stands, he says he loves them about 6 times a day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. He is the cover guy for the October 29th upcoming edition of Cigar Aficionado magazine, and a video on the website shows him getting a rare box of 60-year-old Cuban cigars from the publication's founder. And Michael Jordan says, I'm not going to waste this. I'm going to take joy and smoke every effing one of them. So,
nice. I got to tell you, I really do enjoy the Cigar Aficionado publication.
It's a good magazine. I enjoy it very
solid.
much. Jordan said his favorite cigar is the Cuban Partagas Lusitania, which the magazine says retails for about $13 each in Cuba as of about 2 years ago. However, he says he really likes a variety, and he also called going to Cuba to visit cigar makers his dream trip. But he said because his wife is from Cuba, there's no political complications for him to go there.
Oh, wow.
So, and very interesting. A few other cigar-related Jordan tidbits. He started to smoke in 1991, became a daily smoker by 93, and at some point he began smoking a cigar while driving to the old Chicago Stadium before games. Richard Lazenby, in his book Blood on the Horns, said that after games, Jordan and various teammates would pound down 5 or 6 beers and then fire up a cigar. It's not unusual for pro basketball players to drink beers after games. They've been doing it for decades. It helped them replace the bodily fluids they've sweated away. This is my new thing. When somebody talks about, wow, you drink a lot of beer, I'll go, well, it replaces the bodily fluids that you sweat away.
Sweating away, right?
Yes, absolutely.
It's basically Gatorade.
So Jordan has a 28,000 square foot home in Florida, has a home theater built in with an industrial strength air purification system so that he can smoke and watch movies or sports. And he loves to smoke on the golf course. And that's all stuff coming out in the new Cigar Aficionado. But Michael Jordan, 6 cigars a day. He smokes 6 a day.
That's definitely respectable.
I'm not feeling quite so like over the top anymore. That's good. This is good.
I guess I guess if I look at it, I smoke a cigar every couple days.
Yeah.
Very rarely do I have a more than one cigar a day.
Yeah.
Because it's usually at the end of the evening. I'll have
Usually-
sometimes
except
I'll
when
have
you-
2 cigars.
Except when you come over to my house.
When I come over to your house, yeah, like we've
I'm a
had
bad
days where
influence.
2 or 3 cigars, but usually once every couple days is about when I can break off the time and
Yeah.
sit there and do it. I really enjoy my time doing it.
It's really about the time. I mean, you can smoke more
Right.
if you're not waiting for a more opportune moment.
Right.
Is
So
it-
that probably is why I lean towards. I like the bigger ring gauge, the bigger cigars too.
You
'cause
want that longer
when I light it
experience.
up,
Yeah.
I'm committed. You know.
I'm with you. Speaking of commitment, the Abita Brewing Company has been committed to making amazing beers for a number of years now, and they are located in Covington, Louisiana. We had a listener on our Facebook live feed. What was it? Terrence, yeah, who asked if we, had Abita beers, and we talked about this a little bit on a previous show that we'd had a number of different Abita beers, and it seemed like our consensus favorite from what we had was in fact the Turbo Dog, and the Turbo Dog is their brown ale. So what I did is I went out and bought us some Turbo Dog so we could talk about it on the show, and we actually didn't get to it on Tuesday's show. So even though Ian and I have both had this is one of those wonderful reminders, because this is I'm just going to say, even before we taste it, this is what a brown ale is supposed to be like.
Turbo Dog is great.
It's really good.
They changed the label recently, I guess.
They did.
I
It's
say
a little
recently. I
more-
haven't had it in a while. This is a 5.6 ABV
Mm-hmm.
brown ale, and it has been an outstanding.
Did you show
brown
the
ale.
Did you show the
I
dog?
did.
to
I
the
had
camera?
it
Okay,
up on
good.
the camera and everything.
Yeah, it's a you're right. This is a newer, kind of more contemporary Turbo Dog, I guess. But it's kind of
Yeah,
a
this is-
mainstay from the Abita Brewery.
This is a
And-
solid, badass brown ale.
And we talked about we don't necessarily care for every beer they put out.
No, there's some of them I don't like.
But
Like the
the ones-
Indicator's pretty popular, and I'm not a fan of that one.
I'm not huge on that, and Purple Haze is a little sweet for me.
Purple Haze is a little too sweet.
and it's one of their best sellers.
Yeah, big time.
But Turbo Dog is where we all come together and say,
But Turbo
great
Dog,
beer.
yeah, that's you can always get there. How are you
Ian,
feeling about
are you a Turbo Dog fan?
I
Have you
love
had it
Turbo
before?
Dog. It was actually one of my first craft beers
Oh,
that
wow.
I'd ever had, and I remember a coworker of mine brought some by, and I was like, I've never had anything like this. This is great.
It's one of the things that I really want to do a little bit more of here on the show, because it's always so tempting to want to taste the new things that come out. For the obvious
Right.
reasons. You want to try them, you want to taste them, and you want to be able to share with people so they'll know what these new beers coming out are like. But I think it's important that every once in a while we go back and taste a Turbo Dog. We go back and taste a Sam Adams.
Sam Adams, yeah.
We go back and taste a Sierra Nevada Pale Ale. Because these are the beers upon which the craft movement was built.
Right.
And these guys, quite frankly, deserve credit for continuing
Anchor
to put
Steam.
out Anchor Steam, for continuing to put out a great product all these years. They may not be the newest, prettiest girl in class, so to speak, but they really have kept their standards up and continue to make a great. I mean, come on, this is a great brown ale.
Absolutely.
It's just,
Absolutely.
what do you get in this flavor wise? We don't often talk, the beers we know better, we don't spend as much time describing what the flavor profile is, I think.
This is a very malty beer. Very malty. They craft this with a lot of care in the hop finish on it, because it has a little crisp finish. Mm-hmm. No bitterness, really. No bitterness, but a lot of caramel and almost brown sugary kind of notes with the malty flavors in there.
I'm just impressed by how easy it drinks.
Yeah,
with
and
all
it-
of that
and it
going on,
finishes quick and easy.
It doesn't come across like a thicker, heavier beer.
Well, when they hop this, when they do the bittering hops on this, they do it like, I don't know, they're like, they have a magic thing about it to where it just finishes so crisp and clean.
I think that should be our go-to. How do you do it? If it's hard to explain, just magic.
Magic. It's just magic.
It's just magic,
right?
Yeah, that's how they do it.
People at Abita have magic.
They have
that
mastered. They have mastered the magic touch. So, well, Ian Mook from Grateful Dane Rum Distillery. I have a feeling you're in the process of mastering this magic touch too, because you've now got 3 products that I think not only are all 3 outstanding, but that appeal each one of them to a very different consumer. You're sort of straight ahead. Your silver is that that rum that is going to be so good in mixed drinks.
Absolutely.
But it still stands up well enough if you're sipping it, neat on its own.
Thank you.
The gold takes it to the next level as far as the oak and the aging, and then the spiced rum is like nothing I've ever experienced before. It's just delicious. But it's I will put up the disclaimer. It's not Captain Morgan's. It's not that kind of spiced rum. It's like a completely different animal.
Absolutely.
And I don't say that to diss Captain Morgan's, guys.
Well, I'll say that
it's Texas
I'll
spice.
say
So
that
I enjoy
I
Captain
generally won't
Morgan's.
buy Captain Morgan's because I don't really like that spiced rum flavor.
Yeah.
But I would buy this. This is fantastic.
Well, I enjoy my favorite spiced rum up to now has been Kraken.
Same here.
And I will also say that I have tried some spiced rums where they've tried to go different, like you have here, where they've tried to go different from that normal spice, and they've been undrinkable. They've been so bad. I'm serious. And I'm not trying to call anybody out, but from some of the major manufacturers, guys who I will drink their other rum, but I won't drink their spiced,
Right.
Because it's awful. And but it's like they're trying. They don't know what exactly to do, so they go, okay, here it is. Try this. And yours
The
does not come
bold and
off
spicy
right. Yours does
version.
not come off this way at all. It feels very crafted for the specific type of flavor that you wound up with, or at least that's what it feels like when I drink it. I mean, you tell me.
No, yeah, that's exactly what I'm
Is
going
this
for.
what you were going for?
Exactly.
Yeah. That's very interesting.
Where's your distillery located? What's the address there?
We're at 5250 Gulfton, Suite 1H.
5250 Gulfton.
Where
Suite
it's a little
1H.
business complex, and
And you
we're
have a
ba-
tasting room.
tasting room. We just opened in June. We're open every Saturday from 1 to 5 p.m. currently. Once we start getting more people that we can handle in that 4-hour period of time, we'll extend that. But we're just getting open as a small little tasting room. Tours and tastings are free. Come by and try all of our rums for free, and let me show you
Gotta
how I
love
make
that.
them for free.
Gotta
And then we have
love that.
cheap cocktails, cheap
Did you
strong
say for
cocktails.
free?
Yeah, it's all
Your
free.
Tours and tastings
Yeah.
is free.
Free.
Yeah, it's a great way to spend a Saturday afternoon.
And
Free.
then you up it if you want a cocktail. You up it from free to cheap.
Yeah.
Cheap cocktails.
That's amazing.
Strong. You get your money's worth. And we also have bottles and T-shirts and all that available for
That's
purchase.
awesome.
I'll
Those
just
T-shirts
mention-
look great, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'll just mention that free is my favorite price.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
cheap is one of my favorite prices.
Did you
So-
bring a swag we can show on the
Yeah.
camera?
on the
here?
camera? Oh, that's a good idea in our closing moments of the show here, because they really do have a great
Got our
vibe going. By the way,
T-shirts.
that's great.
Or
Rum HTX. I love
That
it.
is great.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
and we also have glasses. If you come by any Saturday, we've got
I like
these
the
glasses.
mason jar, yeah.
The mason jar. That's great.
You buy a glass and you bring it back, and we refill it for just the cost of the cocktail. So
Oh, that's great.
makes your cheap drink even cheaper.
And so, what
That's
kind
amazing.
of rum cocktails do you make there at the tasting room?
Currently, we have it's a dark and stormy, but we call it the dank and stormy. We do rum and cokes. We keep it pretty simple. We do some hurricanes, mojitos, daiquiris on occasion. We have different things every week, and check out our Facebook the week before, and we'll tell you what we have a special on.
Well, how much fun has this been? Grateful Dane Rum, thank you so much, Ian, for being on the program.
Thank you so much for having me.
We did run out of time for sampling the Mumford & Sons IPA. We'll have to get to that next week. But we have sincerely enjoyed talking rum with Ian, and so we will leave you all with have a wonderful week, and cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers.